Happy Monday and welcome to the Non-Profits. This week I am your host, Rob, and we also have joining me is Tracy and AJ. Starting us off today, though, is Tracy telling us about a recent memo from the Office of Personnel Management.
Well, in what I can only assume is a performative stunt to combat non-existent anti-Christian bias in the U.S. government, the current administration's Office of Personnel Management has released a 5-page memo that the director has said is aimed at protecting religious expression in the federal workplace, a thing which I was unaware was under attack and which wasn't prohibited in the first place. In its simplest form, this memo can be seen as pro-proselytization, as it says very clearly that federal employees are free to attempt and convert their coworkers at the workplace. Other ancillary details are allowing employees to decorate themselves and their assigned workspaces with religious imagery, totems, and texts. Don't fear, friends, as the memo specifically says that the attempts to convert must not be harassing in nature. I just hope that everyone can agree on what's harassing and what isn't. This story is from The Friendly Atheist by Hemant Mehta on July 28th, 2025.
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. So, just from the very end of what you have there, let's just hope everyone can agree on what's harassing and what isn't. Do you have any idea how we can even begin to answer that question? Because I think it's a good one, and I don't know. What do you think?
So when I used to work for the Missouri government, and when when you have these jobs, you go through all these classes to make sure you're aware of the policies that the government has for certain things and all that. And one of the things we really dug into was harassment. And what does harassment mean? Because a lot of people, it turns out, don't really get it. At least here in Missouri, among the state Department of Corrections and probably across the entire government, is that there's, if I remember correctly, it has to be 3 details have to be so in order for it to be harassment. It must be repeated, unwanted contact. It's a 3-word thing. Of course, you can talk about how the person has to be willingly doing it, but that's another thing. It has to be repeated and unwanted. The problem with it being unwanted is somebody doesn't know it's unwanted until you tell them.
Right.
And so that kind of puts the onus on you, the victim of harassment, to report it. Which I do have a lot of empathy for. Not empathy, probably sympathy for. I just feel like that's true of every crime that's committed against you. The onus is on you to report it, except for fire. I think that if somebody's doing arson, somebody else will report it for you. But like a lot of crimes that are done against you, that's just how it's got to be.
So the point of this memo is that it's trying to make clear that people not only are allowed to, but possibly maybe even should have the ability to proselytize within the workplace, specifically federal places. But as you said, harassment requires the person who's being talked to say so. So how does this affect power structures? Like, what happens if my boss is talking to me about it? AJ, do you have any ideas on like what do I do if my boss is telling me about stuff that is not work related and I don't want to hear? They're telling me about the flying spaghetti monster. What would I do in this case?
I don't even know if there's anything you can do. And like you said, power structures right there. That's a big red flag for me, because people are gonna feel like they can't speak up to their supervisors or whatever leadership is above them, talking to them about, spaghetti monster or Roland the Closet Goblin or whatever it may be. They're gonna feel like really, really uncomfortable, first of all, and then like there's nowhere else to go. Where do you go? HR maybe, but they're not going to want to do anything against a supervisor more than likely, or like, well, he's your boss, just put up with it, whatever. So I don't know, without any type of safeguards, these rules are really, really tricky to handle.
Well, Tracy, you said in the very beginning that you were unaware that the speech like this was under attack, and it already wasn't prohibited. So let me play devil's advocate. Isn't it good then that this memo exists so that people can know that they are able to engage in something that they were always able to, and perhaps fearful to have done so in the past?
I don't know. I don't know if it's good. I think it's unnecessary.
Okay.
I mean, you can even look at older notifications from older administrations to say that, like, this has already been talked about. This has already been established. 1997, the administration at that time called for agencies not to suppress employees' private religious speech in the workplace, while leaving unregulated other private employee speech. So, like, there was already a special carve out for this in 1997, which I get that was a long time ago. I think I was born in 1997. So that's my whole life ago. I get that was a while ago for some people. I don't know, when it's already been a thing we've talked about, something we've already cleared up, made a special little carve out for, I don't feel like this was necessary. I think it's actually a little bit harmful, because maybe they were uncomfortable doing that for good reason. Maybe there was a social stigma against it, and maybe there was a social stigma against it for good reason. Maybe. I'm not saying that was what the case was. Maybe maybe their coworkers will just be thrilled that this is happening. But I can't speak to that. It just seems like unnecessary playing around.
See, I think it's going to be difficult just because, like, we've already talked about the harassment thing. How do I know when it's harassment? And as you said, it needed three things. What was it?
Repeated. It's three words. Repeated unwanted contact.
Yeah.
Repeated unwanted contact, which, by the way, I actually really appreciate that you had such a very specific history that allows for such a very specific answer. That's nice. But also in this, like, harassment puts the onus on that person, which I guess I'm not really sympathetic towards, because it is impossible to know whether it's unwanted until they said so, and so they're just going to have to say so. Now that does create a power structure, but like a power dynamic problem, but that just is how communication works. However, what I thought was interesting in the title was that, quote, Title VII does not cover all beliefs. For example, social, political, or economic philosophies and mere personal preferences are not religious beliefs within the meaning of the statute.
This is like what the Clinton administration was doing. It's exactly like what the Clinton administration did in 1977, which is like, hey, you guys get special permission to do religious speech, but we're not going to actually protect, like, you talking about, hey, maybe let's not do slaves. Why? Because I just prefer to not do slaves. But if I say that my invisible best friend doesn't want us doing slaves, that's okay.
Well, now it's a godly conversation.
Yeah. I'm just going to start, if they're only going to protect religious speech, I'm just going to start lying and saying my God wants me to do that.
My personally held religious belief.
Yeah, it is my personally held religious belief that the creator of the universe wants us to have less taxes on cars. Like, I don't know.
AJ, hours.
AJ, so this is a tricky one for us, because I can totally understand Christians who have a religious belief system want to talk about a thing, or maybe any other religion. Maybe there's somebody who's Jewish, maybe there's somebody who's Muslim. It doesn't matter. Literally any other religion. Somebody who's Wicca, if you want to go that route. But, like, what about atheists? Would atheistic conversation be included within this protection, given that it is explicitly non-religious, but its content is surely religious? Do we count?
Yeah.
AJ?
Probably not. I don't think so. No, honestly, I think atheists will probably be one of the ones that will benefit the least from these type of rules, whatever you want to call them, laws. I mean, were there even laws before that prevented people from talking about religion in the workplace, in federal workplaces?
I no,
Okay.
not that I'm aware of. That's the point.
Explicitly allowed, actually.
Yeah, it's to me it seems like what Tracy was mentioning, right? Like this was not necessary. They didn't need to put these forward because they were already allowed to do that just on the basis of that it wasn't forbidden, right? So you could tag politics, you could tag religion or whatever. Is it socially acceptable? Maybe not. People try to stay away from those topics, but it wasn't like definitely, like prohibited on the books. So now it's allowed on the books.
It would be explicitly protected by the First Amendment to the Constitution.
Right.
Like, not for any other employer, but if you're employed by the federal government, yes. So you can work at McDonald's and they can say you're not allowed to talk about religion here, but the federal government is not allowed to tell you that.
So then, AJ, you said it was not required. This memo galvanizing people to engage in religious discussion, even literally quote within the article, the correctness of their position, it was not required. Right, AJ?
Well, yeah. I mean, I feel like
And why did it happen? Why do you think it happened?
I think that in this specific case, they're just trying to be really insidious with these type of rules. Like, it may sound like a small thing to most people, but the reason I think it isn't a small thing is, for example, one of the quotes from the article, like you said, they talk about, the correctness. It said, employees may engage in conversation regarding religious topics with fellow employees, including attempting to persuade others of the correctness of their own religious views, providing that these efforts are not harassing in nature. Then it goes on to say, during a break, an employee may engage another in polite discussion of why his faith is correct and why the person who isn't of the faith should rethink his religious beliefs. However, if the non-adherent requests such attempts to stop, the employee that brought up the conversation should honor that request. And to me, personally, I'm sorry, but that's a big no thanks. Like, can you imagine the awkwardness of trying not to engage in a religious conversation with somebody that comes to you and starts trying to convince you that, the correctness of their views, that Jesus is king, and like they're concerned about your salvation and your eternal life, and like walking away from somebody that's like suddenly bursts into prayer right in front of you, trying to save your soul, talking in tongues, whatever, attempting to remove your demons from your body. Like, there's a reason why public schools and federal spaces are normally supposed to be kept secular, and it should stay that way. So to me, it seems really clear that the reason they're making this move is not to safeguard freedom of religion, but rather a move to be able to spread Christianity, or rather Christian nationalism. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah, so like I actually right up until your very final point, I was going to say, okay, we understand, especially we here today, we really understand that we are the minority in, we'll just call it religious beliefs for shorthand, even though it's not, right? So that's kind of the point. So that means that if a Christian wants to engage in talking about the correctness, literally quote, of their religious position, we imagine that most people would support this memo because they'd be religious and they want to be able to do that. I imagine that's going to happen. Therefore, they must also support that the Jews are going to come talk to them, or the Muslims are going to come talk to them about the correctness of their position. They will clearly support this, yes?
No. I mean, I can't help but laugh at that. That's just, yeah, no. Can you imagine? I'm here to spread the Satanist gospel to you guys. Would you like to learn more about Satan?
So this is kind of a problem I have with things like this. When they start saying things like, in the article they talk about what was the exact verbiage? Does not cover all beliefs. Social, political, or economic philosophies and mere personal preferences are not religious beliefs. Okay, then what is a religious belief?
Right.
Define it first.
Because here's the thing, Rob, you were saying, you said it a couple of times, and I wanted to interrupt you, but I didn't because I'm a good little boy. Is that
interrupt me now.
Atheists aren't religious, and that's not necessarily true. You can be an atheist and be religious. I'm not, but like, Buddhists are atheistic, and so that's, or at least by and large, atheistic. And so you could go and talk about Buddhism.
One of my best friends is a secular Jew who's practicing, right? Like that's actually very common within Judaism.
Yeah. So I'm just looking at this and I'm like, okay, what does it mean to be a religious belief that isn't social, political, or economic?
I'm actually glad you say that, because I was reading it and I didn't want to get like too semantical about it, but it was like, okay, they're trying to hit religious thoughts. Awesome. And then it literally says it can't be these things. Oh, I had it. Social, political, or economic philosophies and mere personal preferences. Can you imagine the insanity where some guy comes up to you and it comes up to like a queer coworker and is like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, I think that you are the devil incarnate and you will go to hell, but like, I hope to see you at the work function on Friday.
Yeah, but like, here's the deal. How is that not a social philosophy?
I suspect, I deeply wonder if this question even makes sense, where in America, how religious someone is or isn't is so deeply interwoven into our society and our politics in general that do we actually, like literally us right now, AJ, Tracy, and I have just a skewed idea of what it means to be religious? Like, is it actually possible to be religious and not have it intersect with your society or politicalness? And that just is the norm in America. I can't imagine it not intersecting society and your politicalness.
That's the thing. I can't think of an example. I can't say that that's impossible, but like I can't think of an example where it isn't the case.
I haven't ever met a hardcore Christian that wasn't also a conservative, Republican. So,
well, I've never met a religious person who didn't. I've never met a religious person who their social, political, or economic philosophies were not in any way involved in their religion.
Yeah, I kind of don't think it's possible.
Then what's the purpose of the religion? What are you doing?
I even know someone who went from being both conservative and religious to being non-religious and liberal, like all sort of happened at the same time. And so it's like they're so connected, you can't really separate them anymore.
The more we talk about it, the more I'm convinced that they have to be connected, because like, even just super quick example, whip the bankers. Like, it's literally in the book.
But like, even like, I don't even want to make this like, I'm not a conservative by any means, but like, let's say I'm not even going to try and marry religious beliefs and conservatism, because they aren't married. You can have religious people who are very liberal in their beliefs. Yeah. And they claim at least to pull it from the same place. And so I'm like, okay, I don't see how you can escape them being touching at the very minimum. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, reminder, Luther started the schism, and that all started because people were discussing religious ideas. So what happens in the very, very real chance of just a Christian talks to another Christian, but they're not the right sort of Christian.
That's the thing that a lot of people who vote in accordance with these kind of laws, and who put their hat in with this kind of posturing on the sake of the government, who support it and give cover to it. What they don't understand, and it's something that I've heard many, many times, I still don't really quite get why people don't know this, but they're not fighting for your Christianity. They're fighting for their Christianity. And there's so many different kinds of Christianity.
45,000 only.
That the chances it's the same one are really small. And theirs could be the Christianity where they're okay with marrying 14-year-olds. Let's be a little bit more specific and not just endorse an entire religion, an entire person because they say they have this same religion as you.
Absolutely. That's why I clarified earlier, hardcore Christians, not average Christian.
No, I got you.
Big difference.
Yeah, we should endorse specific people and not necessarily religion. I can get behind that because it is a necessary truth that the vast majority of all criminals are religious, simply because there are more religious people than non-religious people. Bam. Well, you know what? This has been my personal belief. So if you would like more of the beliefs of the people here at the Nonprofits, then click the doobly-doo down below, and we will see you on Wednesday.
Doobly-doo.